All right. Okay. So maybe with that, we'll get going. So welcome everybody here. My name is Kirsten Bernas. I'm the Director of Housing at West Central Women's Resource Center. And I co-chair the Kíkinanaw Óma Strategy group along with Kris Clemens, who works with End Homelessness Winnipeg. And you'll hear from her in just a second. But thank you all for coming to hear from community members about the progress and challenges that we've made in supporting unsheltered Winnipeggers during the past year since the strategy to support unsheltered Winnipeggers was launched. And just before we begin, I want to acknowledge that, while we're gathering virtually this evening, we gather on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe Cree, Oji Cree, Dakota, and Dene people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. This is Treaty 1 territory. When we acknowledge that this treaty was not negotiated between parties sharing equal power or understanding of its implications, and that what was promised was unfulfilled. And the water that we drink today comes from Shoal Lake, while the people of Shoal Lake 40 First Nation continue to live under a boil water advisory, and Shoal Lake 39 experiences ongoing challenges with economic development. The hydropower that makes electricity for the event possible comes at the expense of many displaced and affected Northern Manitoba Indigenous communities. The land that we're on has long sustained Indigenous peoples and cultures, yet the majority of homeless people on this land are Indigenous. And the roots of this tragic reality lie in historic and ongoing colonization. So it is time to decolonize and share this land and its resources as the treaties intended. So I'd like us to keep these thoughts in our minds as we listen tonight and reflect on the words of our speaker this evening. Just a note that there will be a time at the end, towards the end, for questions and answer, or question answer period from everybody that's here. So if you do have questions that come up throughout the event and you're able to use the chat function, you can send a message directly to me. Just look for my name in there, Kirsten Bernas. And I'll start to pull those together. But if you don't have access to the chat or you just want to wait till the end, I will open up my screen so I can see everybody, and I'll watch for who's waving to ask a question. So with that, I will turn it over to Kris to get us going.
Thank you, Kirsten, for that introduction and land acknowledgement, and thanks for being the co-chair of this strategy group with me, and thanks to all of our speakers tonight. We're just gonna have, I'll give a little bit of a background on the strategy and the one-year progress report that was released this week in conjunction with this event. The link will be on the slide here, so it's pretty easy to find. Then I'll be introducing our speakers, each of whom has a unique perspective on one of the 6 key recommendations of the strategy. So we'll hear from Melissa Stone, Isabel Daniels, and Jacob Kaufman. Then there will be a bit of time for questions. And before we close, I'm going to come back and just highlight a few different actions that people can take to support some of this ongoing work to supporting people who are unsheltered in our community and working to end homelessness in Winnipeg. So the Kíkinanaw Óma Strategy was released in June 2020, and there's a link there on the screen to that document. It was, however, the product of a year of work by a collaborative group facilitated by End Homelessness Winnipeg with representation from the city, first responders, outreach workers, homeless serving agencies, and people with lived experience. The name Kíkinanaw Óma was gifted to the strategy group by Elder Belinda Vandenbroek and translates from Cree as "This is our home here," reflecting that people experiencing unsheltered homelessness in encampments, at the same time that they are facing barriers to claiming their human right to housing, are also doing a direct act to create shelters and homes and communities for themselves under these really difficult circumstances. The strategy offered context on unsheltered homelessness in Winnipeg, And we often maybe hear a bit of confusion between unsheltered homelessness and homelessness overall, but that term refers specifically to people that are not accessing emergency shelters for overnight stays and not accessing or able to access overnight stays with family, friends, or afford temporary hostels and hotels, and are thus sleeping in overnight situations that are not really designed for ongoing human habitation, whether that's a tent or lean-to, an encampment, a doorway, a vehicle, a bus shelter. The strategy also gave an overview of the work of the Kíkinanaw Óma Strategy group over the previous year. And one of the central pieces of this work was an interim strategy that redirected calls to 311 regarding encampments. Those calls formerly would have been directed to Winnipeg Police Service. Under this interim strategy, they're directed to Main Street Project so that trained and peer outreach workers would be the first point of contact for people who are unsheltered. And Jacob may have more to say about that later. Importantly, the strategy came with 6 recommendations, and that's the reason why we are here today. The first one was to create housing. The second one was to increase income supports for individuals to increase their ability to afford housing. The third was implementation of a coordinated access system for housing resources, enhancing outreach services, opening additional 24/7 safe spaces, and then lastly, continuing the interim strategy during the implementation of these other 5 recommendations. So 12 months since the strategy was released, it was identified that we should look at the progress that's been made and what challenges have come up and kind of track our progress. The recommendations were broken down into sort of sub-action items for different levels of government and the community sector to undertake to help achieve the larger goal. And there's been some rapid progress on some recommendations, while barriers or challenges have emerged in the implementation of others. Certainly the COVID-19 pandemic has increased urgency for addressing homelessness, building awareness that housing is healthcare, and it has increased the visibility of unsheltered homelessness as the public spaces people might have taken refuge in during the day or even overnights, as well as many informal arrangements of couch surfing or crashing at a acquaintance's place would have not been accessible under public health restrictions. As well, health concerns added to barriers or fears that some people faced accessing emergency shelters, which also increased the visibility of unsheltered homelessness. However, because of influx of emergency resources to respond to the pandemic, outreach services were able to expand, and those teams have been working in closer collaboration, supported by strong relationships with first responders, fire and paramedic service, for example, when there's an emergency. We have seen new and expanded safe spaces emerge and several new housing initiatives, and we're going to hear about one of those tonight, all addressing some key gaps in our service system and in the housing continuum that are contributing to unsheltered homelessness. However, in terms of housing supply, need may still be outpacing the construction of new developments, and rising housing costs continue to keep safe homes out of reach for many. So while the post-pandemic future remains uncertain, this one-year anniversary has provided us an opportunity to reflect on progress and reaffirm some of the next steps. And I encourage you to check out that one-year report, which was released just earlier this week. It kind of gives a breakdown of each recommendation, the progress that's been made in specific areas, and what next steps are needed. I've bolded under the recommendations here some of the key recommendations that our speakers are going to be able to speak to, both in terms of the progress and the success that we've seen in our community, as well as challenges that have come up. So we're going to hear from Melissa Stone first from Mawi Wichita Center and Astum Niikinaahk, a tiny home village that is currently under construction near Thunderbird House. and I will turn it over to her next.
Thanks, Kris. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Stone, and I work for the Mama Wichita Center. I've been with Mawi for, I'm going on my 14th year. I've had various roles and have learned so much in those roles. I was asked to be the project coordinator of what was called the Village Project. We had a naming ceremony, and our knowledge keeper, Charlotte Nolan, gifted us the name Astum Niikinaahk, which is Astum means come sit, and it is Cree, and Niikinaahk is Michif, which means at our home. So we were very happy with the beautiful name, and it's just perfect for what I'm going to talk about. So Astum Niikinaahk, I'm just going to say Niikinaahk when I'm referring to the tiny homes. It's going to be located on the Circle of Life Thunderbird House lands at 715 Main Street. We just got our official address of 151 Henry Avenue. So it's going to be located, as you can see in the picture, just behind south east of the Thunderbird House. And on the other side is the Salvation Army. So we're kind of tucked away in the corner beside the auto body shop and up to the circular drive at the Salvation Army. Yeah, so also I want to acknowledge that it's on Treaty 1 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation. It is a communal housing model grounded in Indigenous values and informed by traditional culture and the clan system. Our service philosophy is based on a trauma-informed, harm reduction approach rooted in the 7 sacred teachings and an Anishinaabe life model where everyone has an equal voice, unique gifts, and roles and responsibilities as they journey through life. Niikinaahk offers 22 tiny homes. 4 of them will be wheelchair accessible, and a communal lodge geared towards male, female, and gender diverse adults experiencing unsheltered homelessness or at risk of homelessness. Our relatives will live and be supported in Niikinaahk as they move through their healing journey from unsheltered living towards independence and interdependence. We have partner organizations, Aboriginal Health and Wellness, Niikinaahk, Eagle Urban, and Homelessness Winnipeg, Thunderbird House, and Mawi. All of these programs will provide, all of these agencies will provide enhanced programming such as primary health, life skills, and cultural programming. Niikinaahk is run through a collaborative, partnered approach informed by elders and people living or lived experience of homelessness. Tenants may be connected to Housing First or non-Housing First programs. Tenants will be fast-tracked with EIA and CMHB, which is a benefit for folks. Niikinaahk will be multi-generational, multi-gender, 2SL LGBTQ, single adults. Minimal barrier accommodation for participants with mental health, substance use, and or addiction issues, and do not require higher levels of support that Niikinaahk offers. Example, those needing professional care or 24-hour supervision. Programming will consist of, but not limited to, self-care, life skills, coping skills, cooking, resume writing, the Rental Tenancy Act training, EIA training, budgeting, decision-making, hunting, volunteering, fishing, housing options, work, artwork, income tax filing, legal rights and responsibilities, medicine picking, ceremonies, shame training, harm reduction training, hoarding training, etc., etc. Weekends will include different activities such as gardening, building a snowman, picnics. Sorry? Picnics, tobogganing, game tournaments, bingo with prizes, card games, ceremonies, movie night with snacks, arts and crafts, bowling, etc. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Melissa. So I think that Niikinaahk speaks directly to the recommendation on creating housing in the Kíkinanaw Óma Strategy, and is highlighted in the one-year report back as a really key initiative in our community. And as Melissa mentioned, it was really designed with people who have experience of unsheltered homelessness as well, which is a key piece of this. One of the other key recommendations of the strategy is to create and expand 24/7 safe spaces. And we have seen new safe spaces emerge in Winnipeg over the last 12 months. Very notably, Velma's House, a 24/7 safe space for women experiencing violence or homelessness. And Isabel Daniels, the program coordinator from Velma's House, was able to join us tonight as well to the progress and challenges that have faced Velma's House last year. I'll turn it over to her next.
Good evening, everybody. Niikinaahk. My traditional name is Turtle Woman, and I'm from the Bear Clan. My home nation is Sagin First Nation, which is about an hour and a half north on Highway 59. Yeah, Velma's House we have been very busy bees since we've opened up. We opened up doors on March 15th this year. Since we've opened up, we have had 278 intakes so far. We've had over 1,800 in-person visits. We've served over 2,000 meals to our people, to our guests. A big part of how we've been able to maintain and service and feed and clothe and support our people is from a lot of community support. We've had a lot of outreach from other organizations since we've opened. We've had donations from community that come like every day. People are dropping off either food or clothing, small appliances and stuff like that to help support our ladies once they do get housing. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who has been supporting us financially and with other donations. It really has been keeping us afloat. So miigwech to everybody this far. The majority of our guests, yes, are Aboriginal, but we do have a diverse set of people that are coming to Velma's House. All ethnic backgrounds are accessing our safe space. I'm going to talk about the positive things first. So we've been able to implement a community garden with our volunteers. So we have a volunteer program where we allow 2 people a day to come in, help out around the house. We either gift them with gift cards, or some of them have the EIA volunteer sheet, so we help them with that. Since then, we've created a community garden. One of our volunteers has been very active in getting donations, and we've been letting her run with it, and she's been successful. So we're happy to help our people do things and empower them to be more independent and community driven. So I just want to say thank you to her for that as well. Some of the challenges that we see at Velma's house is lack of safe housing. So we've helped house, since we've opened, we've had 10 women secure housing. Sadly, though, 9 out of those 10 women are homeless again. So an issue and things that have come up for us is our women maintaining housing once they're in there. Some of it had to do with mental health issues. Some of it was once people are housed, there's no supports for them once they're in the house. Supports seem to, I guess, be more laid back at that point because they're in safe housing. We find that our women are sometimes not even going back to their apartments, and so our challenge is finding out why that's happening. Once our women have been, and some of them are in Manitoba housing, some of them are in good areas, some were kicked out due to violence, addictions, issues, and stuff like that. So a real big issue for us is that continuum of care and making sure that we as organizations are communicating and talking to each other in regards to what happens when our people are housed, and how we can support each other in making sure that those people stay in their houses. Like, there's got to be an extreme reason why someone would choose unsheltered, to be unsheltered than to stay in the apartment that they're living in. We've talked to some of our women in regards to why they haven't gone back to their not placements, but to their new homes. And that was because apparently it's no different if you're putting women in a rooming house that's fueled with, that has nothing but drugs and drug dealers, people breaking into other people's suites. It's a false sense of security for them. So they found, like, once they were there, they were a little bit more laid back, relaxed, feeling that they were safe, and then violated by either their house getting broken into, or people constantly bugging them or knocking on their door. So they abandoned their apartments. Partnerships with other shelters. We are 24/7 for a drop-in. We don't have, and we're not at the 24-hour mark. We are open 7 days a week. We're open till 8 o'clock in the evening every night, 9 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. We're hoping to get to that 24/7 mark by the end of August, for sure, by the time weather changes and it starts to get cold. Funding dollars have been an issue for that, so that's why we haven't hit that mark yet, but we're getting there. But partnerships so far, so we found that even when we have women that are victims of domestic violence, we haven't been able to get them into any shelters. We do transport people to out-of-town shelters, so we've done that about 15 times to make sure that our women are getting to these safe spaces, and making sure that they're accessing those beds and stuff like that. So we've done transports out to Brandon, Niikinaahk, Winkler, Steinbach, Selkirk. We do treatment transports. If women have bed in treatment centers, then we transport them out there as well, just to make sure that they're not missing out on the opportunity to continue their healing journey. That's another thing that we're doing at Wellness. Sorry, my dog is she's whining right now. Our long-term goal at Velma's house is to have a center where we have a mentorship, and women are transitioning from unsheltered to first stage housing, second stage housing, and then eventually into long-term independent housing for themselves. That is our long-term goal for Velma's house. And then addictions as well, obviously, is another issue for us, is when we're trying to get people into treatment beds, and there's no beds, there's detox, is a 4 to 6 month wait at times. But all in all, we've we've been keeping busy, and the response from community has been good. The response from the participants and people accessing Velma's houses has been good as well. We're a small team of 5 women, 5 survivors that are doing the best we can to make sure that we're servicing our women and making sure that they're safe and that they're supported and that they know that they can always either, they can always access Velma's house. We're a very low barrier safe space. So it'll take a lot for you to not be able to access that space. And our goal is to never ever ban anybody. Some people might have to be put on restrictions due to reoccurring violence and drug use in Velma's house. We're not staffed to be able to have people use on our property, and our staff isn't trained to safely allow people to do that. So, and that's the only other issue that we have is encampments on the porch. We have people staying underneath the front deck. We have people staying on the front deck. So our goal is we partnered up with Main Street Project. Their outreach team comes overnight and in the evening to make sure that those women are safe and have what they need when we're closed. I think that's it.
Kichimigwich, Isabel, for sharing, some of the amazing contributions that Velma's House has been making in our community, and also being so frank about the challenges that the women accessing Velma's House are facing, and just speaking so clearly to the need to address gaps in our housing continuum and our support services for women affected by violence. And I also just wanted to mention that this flyer features the image of Velma herself, Velma Orvis, really beloved and well-respected elder in our community who passed away, and it's so wonderful to have this safe space in our community named in her memory. 2 of the other recommendations of the Kíkinanaw Óma Strategy are to enhance outreach services, and Isabel just spoke to the outreach partnership that Velma's House has been making with the Main Street Project Outreach, but also to continue the interim strategy, which I mentioned earlier, and a rights-based approach to engaging with people living in encampments and experiencing unsheltered homelessness. And so our next speaker is going to be speaking to these 2 recommendations, sharing some of the progress and challenges that our community's seen in the last 12 months. So I'm going to turn it over to Jacob now.
Hello. First of all, before I start, I would like to say thank you for having me here. I appreciate it. And that I will continue to approach the work that I do within this amazing community by treating people like people with the respect and dignity that they deserve. And always by allowing the community to speak for themselves. They are loud. We need to listen more and talk less. Thank you. Over the last year, all the different organizations in Winnipeg have been working together, and we've been moving forward by working together. The one meeting is a great example of that. So that's the Winnipeg Outreach Network. We meet every 2 weeks, tons of different organizations. We keep updated on the camps. So all the encampments, we keep updated on people who are in need. We discuss everything on there, from child predators who roam the streets, attacking our children, to the people who exploit our street working community, and so much more. And because we are all meeting and working as one, we have housed several community members. There was a bunch of fires last year at a certain camp, and because of those life safety issues, 17 fires, 5 structures burned. It got dismantled. So by working together, we actually housed, so other organizations working with us helped house every single one of those people in that encampment. That's just a small example of what we do as a group, and it's by working together. We've also together handed out thousands of pounds of life-saving clothing during the winter, tents, tarps, thousands of pounds of food, syringes, pipes, condoms, other harm reduction supplies to reduce and stop the spread of STVBIs within the community we've done together. And anything else that the community needs or wants. Over the last harsh winter, I would also like to acknowledge that several groups within the communities that are not organizations, that are just humans, that are amazing, took up the mantle and they went out and they delivered pounds and pounds of warm clothing, food to our community during this winter. If any of you were on here, I would just like to thank you. You saved lives this last winter. You're brilliant. I love you. Yeah, to improve the work that we do within this community and by moving forward, we need to use systems like HIFIS to map what we're doing and where the different camps are to ensure that we're not missing any community members, because there's lots of them. The reality is there's encampments in every single part of the city, everywhere. There's people sleeping unsheltered in bus shacks all over the city. And it's a lot of work to get to them all. And I don't like using the word tracking because we are not tracking humans. That is not what we do. But we need a system in place where we can figure out what organization has done what and how we can step up if we miss something. We have to understand that every single person out there who's sleeping on shelter is different. Every human being on earth is different. We all have different needs, different wants. If I'm unable to provide for this person, I should be able to go into this program and write, we need this here. This person would like housing. Right now, Main Street Project isn't able to house people, but I know someone else in the one meeting is able to do it. Let's get them housed. So one of the big barriers is being able to coordinate everything into one streamline so we can help every individual. I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge the WFPS and WPS and the city of Winnipeg with the work that they're doing that no one sees. I've been at Main Street Project for just over 2 years now, and WFPS goes into the encampments. They do fire safety. They help save lives. They're with the community. It's amazing the work that we're doing as well. The city of Winnipeg, by doing mindful cleanups. So what mindful cleanups are is you and me, people who have homes. We get garbage pickup every week. It's normal. It happens. People in encampments, they don't have that luxury. So unfortunately, there is large amounts of garbage. And you know what? The community wants it cleaned up. So they will come to me or my partner and say, hey, Jacob, you know what? We need this cleaned up. We don't want to have garbage all over our front yard because it is their home. It is their front yard. Well, over the last 2 years, the city of Winnipeg has been working with us. So they come in, they do not touch structures. They do not take what the community does not want them to take. I just want to say that. They take the garbage away. They do what the community wants. I just want to say thank you for that. It's amazing. WFP or WPS, the police service. We've been working with Brian Kuplo, Sergeant, and he has done amazing work with the community, treating them like people, bringing them water, helping them with whatever they need on a personal level. It's amazing. I want to go back to the camps. So this is not, I want to kind of drill it into your heads that this is not done in other cities. In every other city, town across North America, when a homeless camp is brought to the attention of the city comes in with an eviction notice for 24 hours. The next day, a garbage truck and the police show up and they take their belongings away and throw it into that garbage truck. What the city of Winnipeg is doing with the mindful cleanups is groundbreaking. It is amazing. It is dignified. It is not the draconian way of thinking that other cities do, and honestly that Winnipeg used to do, where you've seen encampment, you tear it down. No, they just want to clean it up. It's amazing work, and thank you. Just give me a second here. Also, over the last 2 years since I've got here, Main Street Project has been fielding 311 calls about encampments and people who are in need. So what happens is the community sees an encampment, or they see someone on the street, and instead of calling the police or 311 getting the email or the phone call, they send us the emails, they send us the phone calls. We go out into the community. When we go to a community, to an encampment, we first and foremost start off by asking, would they like our help? If they do not want our help, we leave. We'll come back in a couple weeks. We're not here to force ourselves on others. That is the old way of thinking, and it doesn't work. And through that connection, through that respect with the community and treating them like this is their home, we've been able to do really good work with the community. Yeah, we go in there, we identify what needs they want, not what needs we think they want, what needs they tell us. And then we will work with all the other organizations. We will move mountains to get the community what they want and what they need. From housing to medical needs to food to clothing, you name it. But there's barriers. I would like to see more caseworkers out there who are specifically able to get people on welfare, EIA, right away. So there's no waiting period, because honestly, to get on EIA, you have to have a phone, because you have to get calls from your worker. The application form takes a month right now to go through. It's ridiculous. We need to come up with a better system where we are able to get over those barriers and get people what they need quicker. The city, we need more affordable housing. We need more of every kind of housing, indigenous housing, modular housing, buy up all the hotels on Main Street and redo them and make them safe, livable places for our community. Yeah, and but we also have to go into everything we do with the respect of the community that we serve, because we do serve them. That's what I do. I serve the community. We have to understand that some people don't want housing for whatever reason that is. And I'm cool with that. If you just want me to bring you water or supplies or food, I will do that. I will bring you tents. I will bring you whatever you need. Just know that I will never force myself on you. We need more tents. We need more tarps. We need more generators for the encampments, because We had a death last year due to fire. I truly believe if camps had generators, that wouldn't have happened. Yeah. So just give me a second. The communities that we work with, when we're putting out messages to the community that we need this donation, that donation, we need to be more specific. 500 pairs of knitted gloves are good. They're good, and I love it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Keep knitting them. They're amazing. 200 pairs of gloves that are good to -40 are a little bit better. So we just, as organizations, we just need to be a little more specific with what we need. Sorry, not what we need, what the community needs. I apologize. Yeah. Just treat people like people. Continue moving forward as one, instead of Main Street Project does this, Mawi does that, Salvation Army does this. We have to work together in one common goal, which is serving this community in any way. Yeah. This strategy, it's a rights-based approach. For too long in this field, we've used the approach of housing. We have to realize that housing doesn't work for everyone within the addiction part of this field, because it goes hand in hand. The traditional way is get off drugs. You have to use NA and AA, and that's the only way you're going to be sober and succeed in life. Man, I've been 21 years clean off heroin, and I haven't gone to a meeting in my life. We just have to realize that not every person is the same. And we have to figure out what works for people. Again, we have to listen to them. We have to listen and talk less. I know I'm babbling. I'm sorry. Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity, and have a good night. Thank you again.
Thanks so much, Jacob, for walking us through the ever-growing interconnections among the outreach teams, the support of our first responders on the ground, the work happening within the city infrastructure to really help to move forward a rights-based approach to unsheltered homelessness, and also telling us more about the interim strategy and how that's been working out this past year. And most importantly, reminding us that these are not homeless people and the fix being homes necessarily, although we need more housing. These are human beings with a right to housing among many other human rights. And as Kirsten mentioned earlier, the majority of them are Indigenous and have a whole distinct set of rights to land and self-determination that have historically not been respected. And the way forward for us is listen more, talk less. So I'm going to stop talking and I will turn it over to Kirsten for the Q&A.
Thank you, everybody. So great to hear about all the work that's been happening. I didn't get any questions come through the chat, so I'm going to go try to get to my speaker view to see. I mean, if anybody does have a question that they'd like to ask any of the speakers, I think you're good to just unmute yourself and go for it, I would say. I can only see a few faces, so. We may just have been extremely thorough that we've left no question to be asked.
I've got a question for Jacob. So, you know, in a previous role, I was working in addictions and mental health, and one of their catchphrases, which I know is not universally popular, but it was like harm reduction is meeting people where they're at, but not leaving them there. How in this work do we, you know, respect people's self-determination and rights and support their basic needs, while also supporting them to, you know, I think a lot of people, homelessness can be very destabilizing and stressful, and can lead people sometimes to loss of hope or loss of belief in self, right? The stigma and discrimination can hurt one's dignity and one's sense of self. How do we support people to think bigger about what's possible and hold on to, you know, a range of possibilities about their future while also respecting their independence and self-determination?
That's a big question. Honestly, I'm just going to tell you what I do, and that's just shut up and listen to people. Really, it's as simple as that. It's building trust. It's if someone tells me to go away, I go away, and then in a couple weeks I'll come back and I'll offer water. And if they tell me to go away, then I'll go away, and then I'll come back and I'll offer a sandwich or whatever they need. It's about listening to them. It's about letting them know that they're worth it. One of the big things when I got off the street is, and I was horribly abused in foster care. I was destroyed, so I moved to Hastings Street to get away from that. And what helped me in my journey to where I am now is people just listening. People letting me know that I'm not a piece of crap junkie. People letting me know that I'm worth it. When I'm angry, people listen to me. There's a lot of anger and a lot of hurt in this community across North America. We need to listen to that and not be afraid. We need to listen to them yell, to get it off their chest. I'm pissed off because this happened to me. I'm mad because X, Y, Z. I'm frustrated because I don't know what to do next. Well, I'm here for you. That's the best I can tell you.
Thanks, Kris, for the question. Anybody else have a question?
Well, I'm Delphine. Like all these speakers are just, you know, amazing, and the info you gave us was just a lot, and learned a lot, especially you, Jacob. The stuff you would do is just amazing. Like, that's what I wanted to hear. And, you know, with the Main Street Project, I just, you know, I'm glad you're not doing what the other cities are doing, and that's just amazing. I didn't know that. And I just have a question, like, since like this tiny village, you're only building 22 homes. Like, is this like there's more people out there living in encampments? Like, are you going to be building more after these 22 homes, like, or more villages like later on in the future?
We would love to. And I'll tell you what the issue is. It's money, which is for all of us who are advocating for appropriate housing, for staffing. I'll tell you, to be honest, we've been working on this since January 19th, and we just, as of last Friday, had confirmation that we would be able to hire enough staff to support individuals moving into the 22 tiny homes last Friday. It takes forever, and people don't understand that it's all about that almighty dollar. It's horrible, horrible. And I know that Isabel has the same issue. They don't even have enough staff to run their 24/7. So they can't open for 24/7. So as a community, we need to come together and go to whoever it is that says yes and no to dollars for staffing, to have that 24/7 appropriate staffing, because most of us who work in the field are experiential. So not that we know everything, but we understand and we have been there, right? But it's all about the dollar. And I'm telling you, we would love to. We're going to start it off and we're just going to keep begging for money, which sounds ridiculous, but that's what it is. Jacob and Isabel will tell you, we're constantly begging for money to support individuals and give them what they want. And I'll tell you, we have a living experience advisory committee. We also have our elders that are supporting us, and the partner, like we're all begging for money. It's horrible, but that's what it is. But yes, we would love to, because you're right, 22 homes is not going to help in a big way, but we're gonna start it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we want to take one more question if there's one?
Yeah, I had another question for Melissa. I was just wondering about the tenants of the tiny homes. How long can they live there? Who owns them technically?
So we are leasing the land from Thunderbird House. We signed a 25-year lease. So Mawi is the property manager of the tiny homes, and we are not basing any of the stay that folks have at the tiny homes. It's all dependent on where they're at. So if folks are feeling good after a year and they want to move into interdependence, then we're going to support them. If they aren't ready after 5 years, we aren't setting limits on folks, because everybody's different, like Jacob said. So it all depends on where they're at, how they're feeling, and it's their journey, right? So I hope that answers it.
I just want to jump in. I seen that there was a question on the chat asking why we weren't open overnight instead of during the day. It costs more money to hire people to work overnight and to work 7 days a week. And we don't ever close. So we've been able to secure funding and be able to hire people to work day and evening shifts. I'm not willing to put somebody in a position underpaid and at a 24/7 shelter, which is a very high stress job, and overnight is a very high stress position. I want to make sure that when we do open up 24/7, that we have staff that are trained properly, paid properly for long-term employment. Otherwise, I would hate for us to open up overnight and provide a service, then 2 months later not be able to provide that service because our staff is burnt out and underpaid. It's important that when we make that move and we jump to that 24-hour mark, that our staff is feeling secure and feeling confident in themselves and being able to provide proper supports to our women.
Thank you. So it's just before 8, and I know Kris had some wrap-up comments. So maybe we will pass it over to her.
Okay, thank you, Kirsten. I'm just going to go back to the slides here, because where do we go from here? Obviously, I encourage everyone on the call to go to endhomelessnesswinnipeg.ca, scroll down, you'll see Kíkinanaw Óma 1 year later, and you'll see the 6-page report that's just breaking down the recommendations and the next steps for each of them in terms of the unsheltered strategy. But we heard a lot of people talk about the need for more and diverse types of housing, as well as more funding for housing. So I'm just going to let you know about this national campaign that's underway, Vote Housing. It's predicted that we're going to have a federal election this fall, and this is a nonpartisan campaign to mobilize housing and ending homelessness on the political agenda for the party that's going to form the next government. They've got a platform that includes a much needed Indigenous housing strategy, as well as housing of the various types along our continuum that we most urgently need. So you can find out more about that at votehousing.ca. Closer to home, Manitoba Housing is having a consultation for its 3-year action plan, and it's an opportunity for anyone in the public to log on and weigh in with the priorities. Based on what you've heard tonight, I think we've seen some pretty clear gaps in rent geared to income housing types that the province could focus on in coming years, and it's an opportunity to have your say there by visiting engagemb.ca. And locally, you heard Jacob talking about the interim strategy. Kíkinanaw Óma has released this residence guide. You may have seen it on social media or in other formats, but it's just what any general person in the public tips on what to do if encountering someone who may be experiencing unsheltered homelessness. So there's some stigma fighting and withholding judgment and not making assumptions. Keeping an eye out for life safety first and foremost, and calling 911 if there's an emergency. Talking to people and listening to them. And then Main Street Project's outreach number is on there as well. They could be called to do a well-being check. And of course, they also connect with the other outreach teams working across the city. There's about a dozen of them, some with more specialized target populations that they're trained to work with and that sort of thing. It's okay to give people stuff, and Jacob pointed out sometimes needs will be very specific. I guess we could include minus 40-degree weather gloves and tents on this list. It's okay if you are comfortable and a person accepts an offer. Inviting a person to a home, as with any stranger, is discouraged for both your safety and theirs. It's relationships, and a lot of people have experienced a lot of violation of their personal space or trauma, and just remembering to respect the person's self-determination and rights, and then some links to other resources there as well. And lastly, we heard at the beginning that homelessness and unsheltered homelessness is disproportionately impacting people who are Indigenous on this land, and a lot of the complicating issues around Indigenous homelessness on these lands are tied to the legacy of residential schools. And so encouraging us all to read and learn and keep learning about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and its calls to action. There's a campaign on social media right now called 94 and 94. Put together by Circles for Reconciliation. They're focusing on each of the 94 calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report, one per day, leading up over the next few months. So it's something to look at as well. Marcy, Chimigwich, thank you. I'm so grateful to our speakers tonight, Melissa, Isabel, Jacob, Kirsten. Thank you for introducing us this evening and for being an awesome co-chair. And thanks everyone for joining us. The event has been recorded, so a link will be sent out to participants over the next few days for those who missed part of the session or just want to relive the amazing experience we all shared this evening. Thanks.